So I played with Martha and we wrote songs. I became her sort of in-house producer and co-writer, and we wrote and produced songs together for a couple years.
Nice. So now you meet Martha Davis, you're working with her, which leads you to your next bridge of Don Henley of the Eagles.
Wow, you have done your research. So Martha Davis's tour manager was also Don Henley's tour manager. He got wind that Don Henley had just fired a guitar player and they needed to fill that slot. So he thought it would be a good feather in his cap, and he thought I would be appropriate for Don's band. Sure enough, but again, another 20 guitar players auditioned for Don Henley. Very kind of a high pressure situation, of course. Well, every audition is, but that one in particular, I remember. Yeah, I had to learn 5 or 6 songs in 2 days and go in and play my heart out. And he came right up to me and said, "Well, you're the guy if we can work out the money." And I said, "I think we can work out the money."
So between where we are today, music director of The Who for the last 3 or 4 years, and the Don Henley meeting, you've in between have played in the Eagles, Don Felder, worked with Mick Jagger. Who am I missing from who's from the
Stevie Nicks.
Stevie Nicks, yes.
Warren Zevon. Yeah, those are the artists I played
Stewart.
with. Rod Stewart, I played on his record, Art Garfunkel's record. Engelbert Humperdinck, played with Charlotte Church. I played on several French albums with Mylene Farmer and other artists.
So every facet in the music industry you've worked in, I would say you've composed, you're a musician, you've toured, you've produced, session work, touring the world. What do you enjoy most?
Well, as you said earlier, I'm a playwright with my partner Lisa Verlo, and we have written a couple of musicals where we have concepts for number 3 and number 4, and creating is the most satisfying. Certainly there's a certain amount of creativity that goes into performing, but it's more interpretive. Sometimes writing with the artist, that's creative as well, but the most satisfaction I get from music is when I'm writing my own musicals. I feel like I have a passion for it, telling stories. See, I was telling you the other day that The Who's music is narrative driven. It tells stories, and people can resonate. It's not just about his story, it's about everyone's story. In some way we connect with those Who songs in a kind of in a more significant way than I could say than a lot of other bands.
And
that's what I like to do. I like to tell stories. I think that's important.
And the Who's rock operas always were
Absolutely.
Themed stories.
Absolutely, they told stories about people, and they may involve wild characters, but we still identify with them. Yeah.
You also write compose for film.
Yeah.
You've done TV and commercials even.
That's right. I was just doing a Colgate commercial from the last time we met till now. I just finished a Colgate commercial.
Amazing. Now, I read a piece you wrote for ASCAP just days ago, and you've talked about being a music director for The Who and how that even happens, which is pretty amazing in itself. And then you talk about, you give advice to other artists that you want to, I guess, nurture and give the secrets away to.
Well,
but the interesting thing was, Pete Townsend, is it Pete that said you're a forensic?
Your work is forensic, because this has never really been done before. Taking apart all the vocals, up to, there's a song he wrote with 8-part vocals. Or some of the music from Quadrophenia or Tommy has 6-part vocals. It's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-part vocals, string parts, horn parts. I took all that music apart from a microscopic perspective. So I have a profound appreciation for John Entwistle's input, because he was the guy who could score things. And when some music needed scoring, I know he did it. And I'm sure Pete had a hand in it too. Some of the vocal parts that are very intricate, I'm sure John Entwistle. And I'm sure Roger contributed to it too as well. But I can tell what parts are scored because I do scoring work.
Now, the interesting part of the history with The Who, it wasn't until you became the music director that they could actually recreate all the vocal parts live. It was never done before.
Well, it was impossible to do because they only had 3 singers. John Entwistle, Pete Townsend, and Roger Daltrey, And sometimes they had 6-part vocals. Well, you can only handle 3, so they did what was termed the rock and roll circus version of the song, rather than trying to represent all the parts, because you'd have to hire other musicians, which they eventually did. And in the current lineup, there are 6 musicians who can all sing. Simon Townsend, so there's Pete and Roger, Simon, and then John Corey, Lauren Gold, and myself. And so that's the 6 parts can be handled by the whole band.